Imagine waking up to find your bills paid, your savings growing, and your financial goals all on track, all while you slept. It sounds like a dream, doesn't it? Well, it's all possible in Sequence, the financial automation tool designed to help you automate your savings, your investing, and your overall goals in just a fraction of the time. In this video, we'll cover what Sequence is, how to set up your first automation so that you can take control of your finances, and by the end of this tutorial, you'll have a fully automated financial system that saves you time, reduces your stress, and helps you achieve your financial goals. So let's get started. So what is Sequence? Think of Sequence as your personal financial robot. It's like having an accountant who works for you 24/7, 365, moving your money exactly where it needs to go and when it needs to get there. No more forgetting about transferring money to pay bills. Sequence does it all for you automatically. So you might be asking, how do we get started? Well, before we start automating, we need a game plan. And that game plan needs to understand, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to build an emergency fund? Are you trying to implement the profit first method for your business? Or maybe you're saving for that dream vacation. Well, for today's example, we're gonna use a simple but powerful example, and that's automating the 50-30-20 budget principle. And if you're not familiar with it, that's simply saying of all of your income, 50% is for your needs, 30% is for your wants, and the last 20% is for your savings and debt repayment. So to get started, let's set up your income source. Now you might be asking, what's an income source? Well, an income source is just a new bank account that we're opening for you to receive your income so that we can start to help you automate your money. And here you have two options. You can use your existing bank account at any bank that you currently use. That does give you more limited functionality and slower transfers. Or you can use a Sequence account for better control, quicker transfers, and all of these accounts are created through Thread Bank, which is FDIC-insured, based in Nashville. And I'm gonna show you both methods, but first, let me show you how to create an income source inside of Sequence. So let's take a look. We're inside Sequence right now, and as you'll see at the bottom of the page, we have the ability to create an income source. By simply clicking that, it's going to give us the option to name our income source. And for this, we're gonna keep a pretty simple example. We're gonna be thinking about a user who's a single individual, has one job, and the thing for you to remember is that no matter how many incomes you have, maybe you have a W-2 income, you have a side gig, and you have some rental properties, you can make as many income sources as you need so that each place that you make money, you're able to create your own distinct set of rules for that money. So in this case, we're gonna say salary for Nick. We're gonna create the income source, and as you'll see, it instantly opened a new bank account. Thread Bank, Nick Franklin, a true routing number, and account number. Now, we're in the staging environment, so don't go trying to steal that routing and account number because it's not real. But in your instance, it will be real. And when we're here, we have a couple different options. We could, if we want to, transfer money directly into this to get started right away, or we have a couple great options. We can use our salary deposit switch, which if you work at one of 1,000 different companies, you can, with just a few clicks, automatically send this to your HR team so that all future deposits and all future paychecks will come into the Sequence system so that we can start routing your money appropriately. Or if you don't feel as comfortable with that, or maybe your company doesn't take that, you have the ability to generate a PDF, email it to the HR team, and make sure that all of your new future paychecks will be coming into the Sequence system. So in this case right now, we're gonna skip that process and we're gonna move into the next step. In this case, we are going to be working on connecting our accounts. So the second button down here at the bottom allows us to connect a number of different accounts. We have depository accounts, which are things like checking and savings accounts, your typical bank accounts. You can connect all of your different investment accounts, liability accounts, and perhaps you're paying rent to a landlord or have a family member that you send money to. You can do external transfers as well. So let's take a look and start with our checking and savings. So in this case, let's pretend we're using Citizens Bank. And if you've used any other financial services apps or tools out there, you're probably already familiar with Plaid. Plaid's a great tool, highly trusted, and allows us to connect the different banks so that we can not only identify them, but also send money back and forth. So right now we're just gonna go through the typical Plaid process and get this set up. It'll ask you for your banking credentials, simply submit. It'll find your accounts. And in this case, we've already synced our checking account. So I'm going to add our savings. It will do its validation, add the accounts, and they're connected. And there we have it. Simple as that. Now, just for example, let's go and connect a few other pieces. Let's add in some investment accounts, and maybe you use Vanguard. And so the same process will take place. And we're done. Now you'll see it's connecting the accounts of the IRA and the 401k, updating the balances, and there we have it. And as you can see, I'm actually dragging and dropping these different accounts around. You have unlimited control over how you design your own map, and you'll see I like to move from a left to right flow, and we'll get into that more in a little bit. But now we've connected not only our salary, we've connected our banking accounts, our checking and savings, also our 401k and IRA. And lastly, let's add some liabilities. So I'm going to use the spin wheel method. You have multiple options here. I'd encourage you to go through all of them, but for today, we're just going to go through these few options. It will ask you for your phone number, your date of birth, and in this case, it's found, the home, the auto, the credit cards, and the personal loan. Simply click save. It's connecting all of these accounts, and there we have it, all with updated balances, so we're ready to go. And again, I will drag these over so that we have them set up correctly. And as simple as that, we have the start of our map. Now that we're done with that, let's get to the exciting part. Let's build our 50-30-20 model. We're gonna set this up right now. And to do that, I'm gonna use our pods. Now, what's a pod, you might ask? Well, it's simply another account that allows you to instantly transfer money to achieve your goals. And again, these accounts are through Thread Bank so that we can utilize all of the instant access that we get by our partner. So as you can see at the bottom, you'll have the ability to create a pod. In this case, since we are building our 50-30-20 principle, I'm going to start with needs, 50%. Create the pod. There we have it. I'm going to create another pod, wants, of 30%. And our last pod of savings and debt, 20%. Now, I like to name these pods exactly what they're intended to do, because as you can see in our next step, when we start to build out our rules, it's really helpful to understand where you are sending money to. So now that we have our pods, let's move them accordingly. We have savings up top. We have wants in the middle. And we have our needs down below. And I'm also going to move our checking and savings. So now that we're done with that, let's build our automations. And to do that, I'm going to simply scroll over our salary, our income source, and you'll see this plus button. That plus button is simply a click and drag and allows us to drag it to any different account on here. And now you're going to see a couple different ways to create your rule. You can trigger by incoming funds, you can trigger by a specific date, and we're always releasing new features. And in this case, we have a remote API that's still in beta, but will be launched soon. I want to show you right now trigger by incoming funds, which is a great tool that's allowed via the income source when you use our sequence accounts. What this means is simply anytime money lands in that salary for Nick account, this rule is going to instantly take place. And here's what I want to do. I want to transfer a percentage of the incoming funds, so in this case, it's going to be 50% to the needs bucket. Now I'm going to simply add another account, and in this case, I want to transfer 30% to, and I'll scroll down to our wants bucket. And lastly, the final remaining 20%, I'm going to send to our savings and debt bucket. I click save, and as simple as that, it's done. Your first automation is all set. Now, we can go a step further, and because each of these pods actually does come with a true debit card, a virtual debit card that you can activate and use, some people just use the pods for all of their spending. But you might like using your current bank account and your current checking account. So in that case, it's pretty easy for us to send all of the money from this needs account right to our checking account. And I'm going to click and drag, create a rule, trigger by incoming funds. I want 100% to go to my Plaid checking account. click save, done. Now, salary's moving to all of our different pods, which are our 50, 30, 20 goals, and all of the needs are going straight to my checking so that maybe my mortgage and all of the other pieces that I want to take care of that are currently being used from my checking account are all set and taken care of. Now, let's take a look at the next piece. The next piece gets really fun because you might say, well, savings and debt in this account is helpful, but how do I actually get it to pay off my debts and to start accumulating more savings? Well, this is how we can use another rule. So in this case, I'm going to click and drag, and I'm going to go to our IRA. And here's what I want to do. Now, I could use trigger by incoming funds again, but in this case, I want to show you the triggered by date tool, which is helpful, especially when paying debts, since most of our credit cards and other bills are due on a monthly basis. So I'm going to click triggered by date. And as you can see up top, I need to create a schedule. In this case, I want to do monthly, in which day, if I scroll to the bottom, I get the last day of the month. And here I start to create my actions. So in this case, I want to transfer a fixed amount of $600 to my IRA. And you might say, well, an IRA has a limit of $7,000 in 2024, and 6 times 12 gets you $7,200. So here's a great little tool. Look at this. I can add a limit, and here say up to $7,000 per year, thus capping out and making sure I take full advantage of the maximum amount I can contribute to my IRA without going over. Now, I could click save, but in this case, I want to add some more rules to this because that only accounts for the first $600 of the money that's going to my savings and debt bucket. So I'm going to click this plus button, and now I can create as many rules on top of that as I want. And now, since we have a handful of liabilities, debts that we want to make sure we pay down, in this case, you might be a fan of the debt snowball method, or maybe you have some different way, but debt snowball can be a really powerful tool for paying off your debts. And the great news is we actually already have it built into the system. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to click on one of the debts, in this case, the mortgage. And then when I go back to my rule type, I can actually execute a bunch of different rules here. In this case, I want to select snowball. And I'm going to say I want a percentage of the balance. So of all the money that's left in my savings and debt bucket, I want 100% to go to, in this case, I've only selected the mortgage, but that's not how we want to do it. I'm going to add accounts, and I'm going to simply select all of my other debts that I have linked. Let's add them all right now. Now I have them all complete. And as you can see down here in this little text, it says this action will use 100% of the savings and debt balance after we've sent $600 to our IRA to pay the minimum amount due on all of those different mortgages, pay the minimum amount due. It will pay the minimum amount due on each of those different liabilities, and all remaining funds will be transferred to the liability with the lowest balance. So what does that mean? Well, it will pay the minimum due on each of those accounts and then take everything that's left over and dedicate it towards the lowest balance, because that's the snowball method. And so as they get wiped out, that remaining balance will continue to snowball down to the rest of your debts. Let me click save right here, and instantly I have all of that automation already built for me. So hopefully you now understand rules and how powerful they can be in helping you eliminate your debt, increase your savings, and helping you budget more effectively as you move forward. Now, if you want to really up the game and you really want to take your automations to the next level, you can use something called conditions. Now, imagine you're getting pretty consistent paychecks, but there are some months that you make more than others. Maybe that's overtime, maybe that's you're working on commission. But let's say in those months that you make more than normal, you want that additional money to go to that savings pod so that you can invest it and pay off your debts earlier. Let me show you how to do it. Going back to our original rule set, we want to click on any of these rules right here. And then I can click on the rule itself and it opens it up for me. Now here we talked about triggers. In this case, it's anytime funds are received into the salary for Nick, it's going to send the 50, 30, 20. But if you see this condition right here, I can start to make different conditions. And here's what we want to do. So what we want to do is we want to say if the balance of salary for Nick is less than or equal to, in this case, let's say they're making $10,000 per month and they're paid monthly. So what I've said now is if the balance of Nick's salary is less than or equal to $10,000 because he's getting paid once a month, $10,000 per month, then I want the money to be split 50% to needs, 30% to wants, 20% to savings and debt. That's the situation. That's the majority of the time. But there are some months where he might get a bonus, might work overtime, might land a bigger deal. Well, in those instances, we want that extra money that he earns to go back into the savings. So what do? Well, we click our button right here, else, to talk about the alternate scenario. So if this condition is not met, so meaning the money is more than $10,000, well, what do we want to do? Well, here's what we're gonna do. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna round down the salary for Nick to $10,000. And we want that to go to the savings and debt pod. So what does that mean? That means, let's say in 1 month, Nick makes $12,000. Well, it's gonna round down to $10,000, and that extra $2,000 will be going to the savings and debt pod, helping Nick eliminate that debt faster, increase the savings, helping him make sure that he's not overspending just on the months that he's making more money. And then we can start to make the remaining rules. So in this case, we'll transfer 50% back to needs, 30% to the wants, and the final 20% to savings and debt. So he'll still have the same split on the original $10,000, but anything over will be going straight to savings and debt. Simply click save, and now we've done it. Now, if this is the first time you've heard of Sequence, click the link below to check it out further. Or if you're already a user, then let us know in the comments how you're using Sequence in your own financial life. And hopefully this was valuable, and you could see that in just a few minutes, we could entirely design your financial automation to make sure that you accomplish your goals and take care of everything that's a priority for you.